there's a lack of understanding of what they're actually trying to do. You cannot keep squeezing up when somebody's about to play the ball forward, because if the timing of the run's good from midfield or from deep, you're going to be caught out. And it's, as I said, it's not the first time in history that managers have tried to hold a high line. Go back to Stevie's Liverpool, Everton when they won the title. Barcelona, under Terry Venables, tried to play a high line, but they did it much better. Arrigo Sacchi was the best at Milan. And if ever you want to know about how to play with a back four that squeezes up and drops off, watch a video by Arrigo Sacchi, which he made, I think, about 25 years ago. It was called 4-4-2 and how to play it. It tells you exactly the theory and the philosophy and how to do it. This Hansi Flick side, at the moment, don't know how to do it. They were much better in the second half because people dropped off at the right time and they didn't concede too much space in behind. But in the first half, they were horrendous.
The most important thing when you're trying to play a high line is that there's pressure on the man with the ball. I mean, that is... There's very few rules, but that is one and the biggest one. And I'm really surprised that Barcelona are still doing this, because I'm going to say 3, maybe 4 weeks ago, Chesney did an interview after a game, and that's his exact words. He said, we can't hold the line if there's no pressure on the ball. And now that triggered me, because generally you'll find players repeating things that the coach says. And I thought that sounded a little bit like Hansi Flick's thrown something in, or he's been talking about it. But fast forward 3-4 weeks, nothing has changed. So I think Hansi Flick isn't listening to Chesney, because he clearly knows where the problem is. And when you sit and watch it, we can see what the problem is, but Hansi Flick doesn't seem to want to do anything about it, which is going to cost them.
Yeah, Sid, and I mean, of course, the boys have been very critical about that high line on the show. And honestly, since last season, and more so now since we see it has not been working, I asked our Gemma Soler just at the weekend if there's still a lot of faith in Hansi Flick, even though we could see it's not working as well as it did last season. And she said there is. So do you feel like that's the consensus over in Spain, that Barcelona fans are happy with it at the moment and happy with Hansi Flick sticking to it as long as they're winning and able to outscore their opponents?
Oh, well, obviously the caveat that you put in there, as long as they're winning, that's the key thing, of course. And of course, as long as they're able to continue to get results and play well, despite being caught maybe defensively. I think it's really important what both Stevie and Robbo have been talking about as well, though. And that's that idea that the high line in itself isn't necessarily a problem. It's a high line that's poorly executed that's the problem. As a tactic, it's not definitively a bad tactic. If you get it right, if the pressure's right, if the timing's right, if you don't allow the other team to release those passes, if you can squeeze the game, it can work. As Barcelona mostly showed last year, there were times when they were vulnerable, there were times when we worried that they would start to get caught out, but they won the treble last year. They're only one game away from reaching the Champions League final as well. And so I think in terms of what people think about Hansi Flick, I think most people believe that there is a degree of stubbornness from him, that maybe there are times when they should back off a little bit. But I think there's also a kind of a slightly, how would I put this, a kind of a begrudging appreciation of the fact that he said, no, this is our identity, this is what we're going to do. And what we have to do is do it better, not necessarily stop doing it. Of course, that does put you, unfortunately, on a knife edge.
I think there's a guy called Ange Postecoglou who said that.
So how did that work out?
Yeah.
Robbo?
Yeah.
Yes, Stevie talked about one rule, that you can't squeeze up when there's no pressure on the ball. There's another one. You can't squeeze up and be running up when the ball is at anybody's feet, that they might play the ball first time. So when the ball is played from A to B, all the time the ball is travelling from one player to the next, they can squeeze up 2 or 3 yards, get the centre forward to come back onside. And as soon as that player B is about to get on the ball to play it forward, they then have to drop off and be on the half turn, ready to run in behind. In the second half, they did it very well. The first half, they didn't. And that's going to be key. Doing it much better, as Sid just said.
Oh, I thought you were going to chime in. All right, well, let's switch focus now.
Other than agreeing with Robbo? No.
Let's switch focus now to Real Madrid, Barcelona's rivals. This is the cover of Marca Frenazo. That's emergency stop after Real Madrid's 0-0 draw with Rayo Vallecano. And Sid, that stands out because it was their second consecutive game without finding the back of the net. And when you've got the likes of Vinny Jr. and Kylian Mbappe in the form that we have seen him in, it is a bit surprising that they went 2 games without being able to find the back of the net. So why can't they score?
Well, why can't they score? I think because in both games they played poorly, because they didn't create very many chances to those players, because those players themselves were pretty well defended. Those players weren't really at it. There was a lack of intensity, a lack of... I don't want to call it effort because I think that's a bit simplistic, but there wasn't that kind of immediate kind of concentration level, the speed of reaction, the determination to go at people in those two games as there'd been in previous games. I think they came up against two very good teams as well. Obviously, Liverpool aren't a great team in Premier League terms at the moment, but they're a team that I think at Anfield you can get overrun by Liverpool on a good day. Away at Vallecas, bear in mind this is a fourth time in a row now, 4 seasons in a row that Real Madrid haven't won in Vallecas, so it's not that enormously surprising. But yeah, of course, there's a sense that this isn't going well, and that there's all sorts of reasons for it. That players are not that happy with some of the things that they're trying to do. That there is. If you like, a slight breakdown in the authority of Xabi Alonso, which of course comes from off the back of the Clásico and everything that happened with Vinicius. There was, I mean, funny enough, you asked why they can't score goals. One of the questions that was asked of Alonso after the game was, well, you had Gonzalo Garcia and you had Endrick on the bench and they're both forwards. Why didn't you put them on the pitch? As if Mbappe and Vinicius and Rodrigo and Fede Valverde and Jude Bellingham and everybody else shouldn't be able to score goals. It's true, they didn't play well, but the most remarkable thing for me has been how quickly people have turned on Xabi Alonso for this.
Interesting that you say that, to hear that they would turn on a Real Madrid legend and the manager. And as we said, it's only been 2 games, but so high is the standard at Real Madrid. Do you feel like Xabi is under any pressure now?
Yes, I think he is. And you know, you have to look at the context of this, and there's a couple of things here. First of all is that belief that this Real Madrid team hadn't yet had a really good performance against a really good team. Now, that stopped a little bit in the Clásico, because remember before that, they played quite well through the Club World Cup and then got battered by PSG. They started the season reasonably well, not very sparkling, not very exciting, but there was a structure developing. They were well organised. They were kind of clearly superior to their opponents. They played Atletico Madrid and suddenly conceded 5. They go into the Clásico, and when they beat Barcelona, everybody thinks, oh, well, there we go then. There's the big game. This is a starting point. They're going to move on from here. But everything that happened in the Clásico became kind of eclipsed a little bit by the reaction to Vinicius when he was substituted, all the noise around that, and then the slight doubt that started to creep in of people thinking, maybe it's just that Barcelona aren't that good at the moment. Maybe it's just that Barcelona had lots of absentees, lots of players not fully fit and weren't able to play particularly well. And then you get Real Madrid go to Liverpool, another good team, and they only lose 1-0, but they could lose 3 or 4 if it wasn't for the performance of Thibaut Courtois. So I think there is a context there which I think justifies some of the doubts, and I think justifies an analysis that says we're still not sure about where this is going. We're still not sure about the development of this team, that they're getting the structure in place, that the players are responding, that people want to do things the way that Xabi Alonso wants to do it. But even with those doubts, I think the degree of the reaction is extraordinary. And I think what that also tells you is that there's some doubts internally as well, because there are certain parts, how do I put this politely? There are certain parts of the Spanish media that when they start turning on a manager, it's not just because those members of the Spanish media have decided they quite fancy turning on a manager.
Okay, then. Well, I guess we can...
What does that mean?
Means that they probably have a reason. They can sense something there. No, you're not.
All right,
I
you say so.
But I suppose I understand it though, Robbo, because it's interesting to hear Sid say that there are these doubts surrounding Xabi Alonso and people wondering exactly where is this going. And it's a question that we asked the minute Xabi Alonso came in, knowing that he was going to have all this arsenal to play with, these big names. But does he know what his best 11 is? Do you think he does?
No, I don't think he does at the moment. I mean, there's a problem. He's trying to fit people in. He's trying to make sure, like Valverde playing at right back at some point. He's got to bring Alexander-Arnold back in if he's bought him for all this money, or they have bought him for all this money. And Valverde's got to play in his better position in midfield. They've got to make sure they get a formation that suits them as well. But I think that the biggest problem they've had in the last 2 or 3 games is that they don't get enough players in the danger areas when the ball's in wide areas. They're expecting to score the perfect goal. Mbappe wants to come short at times, and he's playing very well, of course he is, and beat 3 players to get a shot away. Vinicius Junior wants to get it out wide and go at people and beat a couple of players and bend it in the corner. At times, you have to cross when you're playing against a stubborn team, you have to get the ball wide, get crosses into the box, and get players in the box. I saw against Liverpool and I saw against Rayo, sometimes the ball went wide and they didn't have anybody in the box. Bellingham's trying to make it into the box, but other players are quite happy to receive it outside the box and start again, go to the other side. You have to score ugly goals when things aren't going your way. And at the moment, I can't see them scoring too many goals like the cross that Marcus Rashford hit for Lewandowski in the game against Celta Vigo. That's the goals that the Real Madrid aren't scoring, and they need to score.
Well, somebody that scored maybe ugly goals, maybe pretty goals, just goals all over La Liga